Hello everyone! In this video, we will discuss tattoos in context of pregnancy and breastfeeding. There are 3 things to remember. It is strongly advised that pregnant or breastfeeding women don't get new tattoos, undergo tattoo removal, or sunbath with their tattoos exposed, especially if the tattoos are large and colored. In the next part of the video, I will describe these 3 points in more detail. But before I do, please notice that I have background in chemistry. I'm not a medical professional, so if you have any concerns or inquiries, please contact health professionals. Before we dive into details, let's remind ourselves about some facts. The so-called tattoo pigments were never designed to be used inside of the body. These pigments were originally only used for paints, plastics, etc., and even nowadays, that's their main use. The majority of modern tattoo pigments are organic, but synthetic, and there are only few inorganic pigments used to this day. Tattoo-producing companies are too small to synthesize organic pigments by themselves, so they buy it from large pigment manufacturers who produce pigments for industrial purposes. Therefore, they often contain toxic impurities like polyaromatic amines. The long-term effects of pigments staying inside of the body are unknown, and so far it doesn't exist a good model to simulate this. Now, I don't want to distress any pregnant women watching this video. Tattoo pigments are very insoluble and therefore they are suspected to have very limited bioavailability. Moreover, there does not seem to exist a single report of any adverse effect other than adverse skin effects, even though we know that some fraction of pigment particles do spread to lymph nodes and very likely to other parts of the body. So the reason for these 3 precautions is to avoid any action that would temporarily increase the release of toxic substances from the tattoo site. So when you get a tattoo, there is a temporary jump in release of toxic substances, for instance, soluble impurities. When you remove a tattoo, there is a temporary increase of toxic substances because tattoo pigments are broken down by laser into smaller fragments, which are more soluble and therefore more toxic. And when you expose tattoos to light, especially large colored tattoos, it will cause an extra release of some toxic substances because sunlight, roughly speaking, has a similar effect as a very weak laser. So now I will talk in more details about each of these 3 points. So this diagram shows distribution and elimination of tattoo ink after injection into the skin. So solvents used in tattoo ink are eliminated from the skin very quickly. That's what the gray line represents. Soluble substances, like for instance preservatives, free polyaromatic amines, other soluble impurities, etc., are eliminated from the skin in the course of hours to perhaps few days. That's the green line. And finally, pigment particles are redistributed in the tissue. For instance, some of the pigment particles go to lymph nodes and most likely to other parts of the body. All of that happens in the course of few weeks. After this happens, and after the skin heals, the elimination of pigment particles from the skin will be much less. And you may have noticed the diagram is labeled as hypothetical. There are 2 reasons for this. First, we don't know the precise amount of substances released. It will depend on the size and colors of the tattoo. It will also vary heavily with the brand of ink used for tattooing. Secondly, the time scale is not precise. We don't know if the soluble impurities are eliminated within 1 week or 2 weeks, etc. Such specific data does not exist yet, and probably it will not exist for a quite long time to come. The main point is that after getting a tattoo, there is a temporary increase in release of toxic substances from the tattoo site. And let's just finish off with a quote from a research paper. Due to the potential mutagenic effects of certain impurities, and since even a single dose given on a critical day of fetal growth may be reproduction toxic, researchers agree that pregnant women should not be tattooed. Regarding old tattoos, there is no evidence so far that they have negative effect on pregnancy. There was a research done in France on 25 tattooed women who were also professional tattooists. These women had 36 pregnancies within the context of their professional activities, and the outcome of their pregnancies were favorable. I don't know if some of these women had the tattoos done during pregnancies, but it's rather unlikely. From what I have read, there seems to be quite high awareness among tattoo artists, and they will refuse a tattoo to any woman with visible pregnancy or who admits that she is pregnant. pregnant. The sample of 25 women is not very big, but this research is a small reassurance that old tattoos do not have toxic or mutagenic effects on the baby. Having said that, the risk to fetal development in heavily tattooed mothers is not known. For instance, this person's skin is already holding easily several grams of pigments. Such extensive tattoos raise some concerns among researchers. So let's move on to the second point. Pregnant and breastfeeding women should not undergo tattoo removal. In most, if not all laser removal centers, you will be asked whether you are pregnant or lactating, and if so, the procedure will be postponed. So, as we have said, laser removal results in temporary increase in amount of toxic substances released, which are coming from the fragmented pigment particles. It takes several weeks for the macrophages to clear up the pigment particles, so perhaps this also can be taken as a period of increased release of toxic substances. As a side note, please remember that laser removal can trigger an allergic reaction. So let's move on to the last point. Sunlight is capable of breaking down pigment particles. So this research found that after tattooing mice and radiating them with sunlight simulator for 32 days, the amount of pigment, in this specific case pigment red 22, has gone down by 60%. In comparison, after 43 days, without the sun exposure, the decrease was only about half of that is 30%. Now, sun resistance will vary depending on a specific pigment, and mice has rather thin skin, which does not seem to be a very good model for human skin, but nevertheless, the difference is big. And it does seem to be a common knowledge among tattoo artists that if you expose your tattoos to sunlight, it will not last as long, because some portion of the pigment will be degraded by the sunlight. All in all, sunlight breaks down pigment particles, releasing toxic substances, and therefore needs to be avoided during pregnancy and breastfeeding. Another thing is that sunbathing a tattooed area can trigger sun-induced reactions in the tattoo. This is a research based on a survey conducted on a beach. From 144 tattooed sunbathers, almost a quarter reported sun sensitivity, like swelling, itching, pain, or redness. Does a sunscreen help? This paper sadly does not correlate the use of sunscreen with sun sensitivity. We only know that 6% of participants stated that the reason they use sunscreen is to prevent sun-induced reactions. But please bear in mind that about 25% of participants reported sun-induced sensitivity and 76% reported the use of sunscreen. From this data, it simply seems that there is some awareness among participants that sunscreens can minimize the chance of getting sun-induced reactions in the tattoo area, but the paper, as I said, does not correlate the use of sunscreen with sun sensitivity. Also, please bear in mind that during pregnancy, many women find that their skin is more sensitive, so this is just one more reason to protect your tattoos from intense sunlight during pregnancy. As a last thing in this video, I would like to mention some advice for women who are planning to have children, but who also think about having tattoos. Point 1. Please choose the best brands of tattoo inks. Why? Because they will have better purity and quality of pigments. Which is the best brand? From the research I have done, it's currently Intensa. I will make an entire video on why I think it's currently the best brand, but even if you go onto the website, you will be able to see their professionalism. Nowhere on the website you will see them claiming that the pigments are natural. Nowhere you will find them claiming that tattoos inks are safe. Here we only read that their mission is to provide the safest ink. It does not say, we provide safe ink. All these details tell you that they have knowledge about the challenges of making inks with low level of impurities, and that they are aware the topic of tattoo pigments needs more research. In comparison, here is a website of tattoo ink brand Eternal, and we can read that apparently they use natural pigments. So what I was going to do now in this video is to go to Eternal website and to download SDS, i.e. safety data sheets. But obviously there was a surprise waiting for me. So if you go to info, there is, for instance, quality control and product information, right? So these are kind of the most likely places where you can find SDS sheets. So, and also downloads. So let's go to quality control. and there is no SDS sheets. There are some information about recalled product, but I don't care. So let's go to downloads, right? So here we have, that is not clickable. This one is a color card, and again, I don't care. And this one is a bottle design, I don't care either. And when you go to product info, so that's the place where we found that apparently they use natural pigments. So it's here, right, this information. And when I scroll down, there is nothing. There is no SDS sheets either. But when I scroll to the very bottom, there is MSDS information. And MSDS is the old version of SDS sheets, right? So I click on this, and I find a link, right? There's no other link here. You can see that, right? So anyway, so there's a link to MSDS sheets. I click on this, and there is nothing. There is nothing. There is nothing. There is no information here. There is nothing to click. Nothing. Empty space. But I was convinced that I will find the SDS sheets because I did look on them a few months ago. So that's and I downloaded a document, right? So that's this. Okay, I will scroll up. Okay, that's their logo, whatever. And when you scroll down, that's for color sandy beige, right? When I scroll down, there is the ingredients, right? And so this one is titanium dioxide. So that is not, well, in a way natural because that's inorganic and mineral. But this one is the azo, so it's organic synthetic. This one as well, and so on. So they're synthetic. So yeah, that's unexpected twist in the video, and I apologize for making it a little bit longer, but I thought that was actually a nice example to show you how tricky it is to find information about ingredients in tattoo inks. All the brands I looked at either provide false information or they use subliminal messages to create an illusion of safety. For instance, by referring to the century-long history of tattooing, only that they somewhat forget to mention that the modern tattoo pigments is a revelation of the last 50 years. Point 2. Please take into account your future pregnancy in the placement of your tattoos. And yes, of course, that includes things like avoiding tattoos in places which are going to stretch a lot, but there is one thing that I would like to focus your attention on. Perhaps don't get a tattoo that covers your entire lower spine. Why? Well, basically, sometimes during a labor, you could be given a spinal anesthesia. Anesthetic is injected into the fluid that surrounds the spinal cord. The concern is that the pigment particles can get trapped into the needle and go inside of the fluid that surrounds the spinal cord, and that it can have negative effect on meninges. Meninges are 3 layers of membranes that protect the brain and spinal cord. This is a research done on rabbits that examined this problem. The rabbits were given spinal anesthesia through tattooed skin. The researchers found that inserting needle through tattooed skin can produce some histological changes to the meninges of rabbits. So yeah, if you are getting these types of tattoos, maybe ask your tattoo artist to leave, say, 1 centimeter long area on your lower spine where you can be given anesthesia in case you need it. This actually does not need to be only relevant to labor. There are some other situations where this type of anesthesia is appropriate. So that's all I have for you in this video. Thank you for watching. Bye!